Have you ever been surrounded by people who hide their true feelings while you continue to give them your trust and energy? Buddhism teaches us to be mindful not just of our own actions, but also of the subtle energies and behaviors around us. This video will reveal 7 signs that someone dislikes you, even if they're trying to hide it, based on Buddhist teachings. Comment below. I deserve to be surrounded by genuine energy. Sign 1. Fake smiles and forced politeness. The first sign that someone doesn't like you, but is hiding it, is a fake smile and exaggerated politeness. In Buddhism, there's a deep teaching about sincerity and the importance of being authentic in our interactions. When someone smiles superficially without showing true compassion, that falsehood becomes clear to those attuned to the energies around them. A smile should be a natural expression of our inner kindness, according to Buddhism. It should come from a place of genuine empathy. However, when a smile feels forced, it's a sign the person is trying to mask their real feelings. This behavior could be an attempt to avoid conflict or maintain a facade of cordiality, while internally they feel discomfort or even dislike. The practice of Buddhist meditation teaches us to recognize the subtleties in human behavior. When you train your mind to be calm and observe without judgment, you can more easily detect when people around you are being genuine or are trying to hide something. A smile that doesn't reflect true joy or tranquility is one of those subtle signals that Buddhist practice helps us notice. Additionally, the fake smile is often accompanied by forced politeness. In Buddhism, there's much emphasis on the intention behind every action. When someone is overly polite or kind without sincerity, it's as if they are trying to compensate for inner discomfort. This dissonance between outward behavior and inner feelings is something we should learn to notice, especially in our daily relationships. It's important to understand that many times these people dislike conflict and prefer to maintain a facade of politeness instead of expressing their true feelings. However, this false kindness can be exhausting for the other person, as it creates a sense of disconnection and distrust. In Buddhism, truth in relationships is highly valued, and this truth can only exist when there is sincerity in every gesture. If you notice this type of behavior frequently, it's time to reflect on what it means for your relationship with that person. In Buddhism, we are taught to cultivate relationships that bring us peace and harmony. If someone is constantly hiding their true feelings behind fake smiles and forced politeness, it may be time to question if this person really belongs in your inner circle. In the end, the Buddhist path invites us to seek truth and authenticity in all our interactions. A genuine smile has the power to heal and connect, while a fake smile only creates more barriers between people. Recognizing this sign is an important step in cultivating more sincere relationships aligned with true Buddhist compassion. Sign 2. Constant jokes about your flaws. The second sign that someone might not like you but is hiding it is their constant use of jokes to highlight your flaws. In Buddhism, words carry immense power, influencing not just the one who speaks them, but also the one who receives them. The Buddha taught that we must be careful with what we say, as our words can create both positive and negative karma. Therefore, it's crucial to recognize when someone uses humor to mask malicious intentions. People who frequently joke about your faults may, in reality, be revealing a hidden hostility. While these jokes may seem harmless at first, over time they gradually undermine your self-esteem and erode your confidence. A person who repeats these behaviors shows a subtle form of disrespect, testing how far they can go without being confronted. The key here is not to underestimate the impact of these jokes. In Buddhism, the concept of right speech is central to our daily practice. This means speaking with truth and kindness, avoiding any comment that could harm or hurt others. If someone constantly uses humor to expose your weaknesses, this is a sign that they are not aligned with compassion and respect. Their words, instead of empowering, are being used to manipulate and diminish. What many people don't realize is that these repetitive jokes are often a reflection of the insecurities of the person making them. In Buddhism, we learn that a person's behavior often reveals their own disturbed mind. Someone who feels the need to point out others' flaws likely can't deal with their own. This kind of behavior creates a cycle of negativity, both for the one attacking and the one receiving. The key to dealing with this is through mindfulness practice. When you become more aware, it's possible to recognize these patterns and not absorb the negative energy that comes from these jokes. Instead of letting these jokes affect your well-being, practice mindful observation and avoid getting emotionally involved in those words. Setting clear boundaries is also essential. In Buddhism, we are taught to protect ourselves from negative influences without creating conflict. By identifying this form of hidden aggression, you can gently communicate that you will no longer accept this behavior. Respectfully, let them know these jokes are not welcome and that you prefer an environment of mutual respect. Finally, by practicing right speech and cultivating self-compassion, you become more resilient to these attempts to undermine your confidence. Buddhism teaches us to value our inner peace and not allow the attitudes of others to negatively affect our spiritual journey. Sign 3. Compliments with hidden criticism. Another common sign that someone might not like you is when compliments come with hidden criticism. In Buddhism, we learn that sincerity is essential in all our interactions. A compliment should come from a pure heart, with no hidden intentions. However, some people use compliments as a way to subtly put others down, inserting criticism that goes unnoticed at first glance. These types of compliments often sound like, "You did a good job considering your lack of experience," or "This looks great for someone like you." In Buddhist practice, this dissonant speech is seen as a lack of harmony between intention and action. A genuine compliment should reflect kindness and generosity, while a compliment laced with criticism reveals an attempt to keep the other person in a lower position. The hidden criticism may not be noticed immediately, but it can leave the person doubting their abilities. In Buddhism, we are taught to cultivate confidence in our intrinsic value and not let these words affect our self-perception. Identifying when these compliments are actually a form of manipulation is essential for maintaining inner peace. Those who offer these compliments may be projecting their own insecurities. In Buddhism, we understand that a person's mind reflects their inner state. When someone feels threatened or inferior, they may try to undermine others' confidence through subtle criticism. This behavior, however, only reinforces their own cycle of suffering. When receiving this type of comment, it's important not to react impulsively. Mindfulness practice teaches us to observe words and reflect on their true intention. Gently questioning the meaning behind the compliment can also disarm this form of manipulation without the need for confrontation. Staying centered is crucial. Buddhism guides us to practice non-reactivity, meaning not allowing hurtful words to knock us off balance. When you recognize these attempts to weaken you, you can choose to emotionally detach and protect your peace. Cultivating relationships based on truth and mutual respect is the healthiest path forward. Sign 4. Subtle social exclusion. Subtle social exclusion is another indicator that someone may not like you. Buddhism teaches us to cultivate relationships based on respect and inclusion. However, Some people show their dislike by excluding others, whether by not inviting you to social events or simply ignoring your presence in certain situations. This may not be done directly, but their actions make the intention clear. When someone frequently forgets to include you in plans, it might seem like an innocent mistake at first. But if this happens repeatedly, Buddhism teaches us to pay attention. Mindfulness practice helps us notice these subtle behavior patterns, which can reveal the true intention behind the actions. Social exclusion is often a passive way of distancing without direct confrontation. In the Buddhist context, we value compassion and respect in relationships. When someone acts to exclude, they're demonstrating a lack of empathy and a disconnection from these principles. Often those who exclude may be dealing with their own internal conflicts and insecurities, but that doesn't excuse the behavior. Social exclusion can be harmful to the one being left out. These situations require a balanced response. When you realize you're being excluded, Buddhism teaches us not to react with anger or resentment, but with understanding and compassion, both for ourselves and for others. This doesn't mean accepting the exclusion, but recognizing the behavior and making conscious decisions about who you want to share your energy with. Many times, people exclude others out of fear or discomfort. They might feel threatened by someone's presence or simply not know how to handle the situation. However, Buddhism teaches us not to let ourselves be affected by this behavior. We should seek friendships that uplift us, that promote mutual growth, and that respect our presence. Meditation helps us deal with these feelings of rejection in a healthy way, without letting them dominate us. By returning to our spiritual practice, we can strengthen our self-esteem and realize that our worth does not depend on others' acceptance. True inner peace comes from knowing who we are and what we deserve. In the end, if you're frequently being subtly excluded, it's important to reflect on the value of that relationship. The Buddhist path values truth and compassion, and if someone is constantly acting in an excluding manner, perhaps it's time to reconsider that person's place in your life. Sign 5. They're always busy when it comes to you. Another sign that someone might not like you is when they're always too busy when it comes to you. In Buddhism, we understand that how we spend our time reflects our priorities and where we place our attention. If someone constantly avoids spending time with you or makes excuses not to be available, this could be a clear sign of disinterest. It's normal for everyone to have commitments and responsibilities, but when you notice this person always has time for others but never for you, it may signify something deeper. Buddhism teaches us to be mindful of the energies around us, and the energy of time given to you, or the lack of it, says a lot about the relationship. It shows where the person's heart truly is. Buddhist practice invites us to reflect on how attachment and desire can affect our relationships. If you're constantly seeking the attention of someone who is always too busy, it's a moment to reflect on your own expectations and how much emotional investment you're putting into that relationship. Detachment is a fundamental principle in Buddhism, and learning to let go of people who don't share your presence is an important step toward inner peace. When someone says they're always busy, they may be trying to avoid direct confrontation. Often, people don't want to admit they've lost interest in a relationship and prefer to make excuses. However, this lack of honesty creates a cycle of frustration and confusion. Buddhism teaches us to value honesty and clarity in interactions. It's better for someone to express their true feelings than to avoid the situation. If you notice this pattern, it's important not to become resentful or hurt. Mindfulness practice can help you handle these situations without letting negative emotions take over. Instead, focus on how you can move forward without relying on that person's presence. After all, in Buddhism, we understand that happiness comes from within, not from others' actions. It's also important to assess the reciprocity in your relationships. Time and energy are valuable, and if someone isn't willing to share theirs with you, it might be time to redirect your own energy toward those who truly appreciate your presence. True connections are those that flow naturally, without constant effort or excuses. In the end, Buddhism reminds us not to cling to relationships that are no longer in sync with our path. By letting go of people who don't invest time in you, you make room for new and more authentic connections to enter your life, bringing peace and harmony. Sign 6. They avoid physical contact with you. The sixth sign that someone may not like you, but is hiding it, is when they avoid physical contact. In Buddhism, the body and mind are deeply connected, and physical touch is a natural expression of our presence and connection with others. When someone avoids physical contact, like hugs or handshakes, it could be an indication of discomfort or an attempt to maintain emotional distance. This behavior can be subtle. The person may step back when you try to get closer or avoid casual touches that would normally happen in a friendship or close relationship. In the Buddhist context, this demonstrates a lack of alignment between you two, as physical touch, when done respectfully, is a way to share human warmth and compassion. It's important to remember that not everyone is comfortable with physical touch, and this can vary based on cultures and personalities. However, if someone avoids physical contact with you specifically, but not with others, this could be a sign that they don't feel comfortable in your presence. Buddhism teaches us to observe these signs without judgment, but with understanding. Avoiding physical contact can be a form of emotional distancing. When someone doesn't feel comfortable in a relationship, they often create physical barriers to avoid deeper intimacy or connection. In Buddhism, we understand that the body reflects the state of the mind, and this rejection of touch may be a reflection of a mind in conflict or discomfort with the relationship. To deal with this, it's important to practice compassion, both for yourself and for the other person. Buddhism teaches that we should never force connections or demand physical closeness when there isn't genuine reciprocity. Accepting the situation with serenity and respecting others' boundaries is a way to preserve your own inner peace. It's possible that this person is going through emotional or personal issues that make them avoid physical contact. Instead of taking it personally, Buddhism encourages us to cultivate an attitude of acceptance and patience. If this person is important to you, an honest conversation may help you better understand what's happening, always respecting both parties' feelings. In the end, the Buddhist path teaches us not to force relationships or physical interactions that don't flow naturally. Everyone has their own time and space, and respecting those boundaries is a way to practice detachment and compassion. If physical contact is avoided, it might be a sign to reevaluate the connection and decide if it's something that should still be nurtured. Sign 7. They disappear when you need support. The final sign that someone might not like you, but is hiding it, is when they disappear when you need support the most. In Buddhism, true friendship is built on mutual support, especially in times of difficulty. When a person suddenly vanishes or distances themselves during a tough time, this is a strong indication that they aren't truly committed to the relationship. It's easy to be present during the good times when everything is going well and life feels light. However, the real test of a friendship or relationship is how the person reacts when things get tough. If someone consistently disappears or avoids you when you need help or emotional support, this reveals a lack of empathy and true connection. In Buddhism, the principle of interdependence reminds us that we are all connected, and mutual support is essential for a balanced and harmonious life. If someone is unwilling to be present when you are facing difficulties, This could be a sign that they don't value the interconnectedness that exists in all relationships. Distancing themselves during times of need is a sign of disharmony in the relationship. Often people avoid others during tough times because they don't know how to deal with discomfort or the emotions involved. However, Buddhism teaches us to embrace suffering, both ours and others, as part of life. Avoiding difficult situations doesn't solve the problem, it only postpones the inevitable. The absence of a person in your moments of need can be painful, but it's also an opportunity to learn to rely more on yourself and your own inner strength. If you notice that someone consistently disappears when you need support, it's time to reflect on the true value of that relationship. Buddhism invites us to cultivate relationships based on compassion and full presence. A true friendship doesn't disappear in times of crisis. It grows stronger through mutual support. At the same time, Buddhism teaches us to practice detachment. If someone is not willing to be present for you, perhaps it's time to let go of that relationship. We shouldn't cling to those who don't share the same values of compassion and support that we seek. The path to inner peace often requires us to leave behind what no longer serves us. Finally, remember that true support comes from within. While it's important to have people to rely on, Buddhism teaches that real strength comes from our spiritual practice and our ability to find peace within ourselves. When someone disappears, it's an opportunity to strengthen your emotional self-sufficiency and continue your journey of personal growth. Now that you've learned the 7 signs that someone dislikes you but is hiding it, it's important to remember that Buddhism teaches us to cultivate mindfulness and compassion, both for ourselves and for others. Observing these behaviors in our relationships helps us identify who truly shares our spiritual journey and who is subtly draining our energy. Buddhist practice invites us to act with wisdom and detachment. When you recognize these signs, you can begin to distance yourself from those who don't promote your inner peace without resentment or anger. Remember, the goal is not to create conflict, but to find healthy balance and surround yourself with people who truly value your presence and walk alongside you sincerely. Finally, never forget that Buddhism teaches us that true happiness and serenity come from within. By practicing detachment and self-compassion, you'll be able to maintain your inner peace, even in the presence of people who don't share the same intentions. Always choose to surround yourself with genuine relationships where there's respect, empathy, and mutual growth. And, when necessary, allow yourself to let go of what no longer contributes to your spiritual evolution.